What is Project 2025? Project 2025, also known as the 2025 Presidential Transition Project by the Heritage Foundation, serves as a strategic framework or policy agenda for a potential future administration in the United States, with the objective of transforming significant aspects of the federal government. Some of its primary objectives encompass consolidating executive authority and diminishing the autonomy of federal agencies, reorganizing or abolishing certain agencies, such as the Department of Education, and reallocating roles and responsibilities to states or other departments, reversing initiatives associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, critical race theory, and protections for LGBTQ+ individuals, implementing stringent changes to immigration policies, promoting pronatalist or family restoration initiatives, which encourage higher birth rates, redefine family norms, and potentially alter funding priorities to favor married, heterosexual families. Potential societal impacts. The recommendations outlined in Project 2025 may result in extensive changes. Below is an analysis of potential effects categorized by domain: governance, rule of law, and civil liberties. An increase in executive authority could undermine checks and balances, exemplified by diminished independent oversight from agencies and a shift towards more centralized decision-making. The dismantling or restriction of civil servant protections might lead to the politicization of public service. Furthermore, limiting federal enforcement of civil rights related to race, gender, and sexual orientation could weaken protections for marginalized communities. Education. The elimination or reduction of the Department of Education, along with granting greater control to states or parents, may result in increased disparities across regions, potentially causing some students to lose access to resources or protections. The removal of DEI and critical race theory content could hinder efforts to tackle systemic inequities and may also create gaps in cultural and historical knowledge. Policies regarding parental rights, such as requiring parental consent for pronoun usage, could adversely impact the well-being of LGBTQ+ students. Gender, reproductive, and LGBTQ+ rights. Restrictions on access to abortion or contraception may adversely affect women's health, economic involvement, and autonomy. The elimination of non-discrimination protections related to sexual orientation or gender identity could result in legal and social vulnerabilities for LGBTQ+ individuals. Labor, workers' rights. The weakening or limitation of unions and collective bargaining could diminish workers' bargaining power, impacting wages and working conditions. Alterations to the federal employment framework might destabilize the workforce, resulting in job losses for civil servants or creating uncertain employment conditions. There may be potential repercussions for federal benefits, support programs, or protections for workers. Environmental and climate policy. The rollback of environmental regulations and the promotion of fossil fuel extraction could exacerbate pollution and elevate greenhouse gas emissions. Research indicates that billions of metric tons of additional emissions could occur if certain policies are implemented. Undermining investments in clean energy may also negatively affect job growth in those sectors. Environmental hazards often disproportionately impact vulnerable communities. Social fabric, cultural impacts. A shift towards conservative and religious norms, particularly with Christian nationalist undertones, could marginalize secular or minority belief systems. The removal or suppression of discussions surrounding race, gender, and LGBTQ+ issues may heighten social tensions and diminish inclusivity. There is a potential risk of eroding pluralism and the acceptance of diverse viewpoints in the public domain. Economic impacts. Deregulation and tax reductions may favor corporate interests and higher income groups more than those in low or middle income brackets. A reduction in social safety nets or public expenditure could exacerbate inequality. The transfer of federal responsibilities to states might result in inconsistent service delivery based on state wealth and priorities. Intended or argued benefits from supporters. It is essential to examine the claims made by advocates regarding their anticipated outcomes. Streamlined and efficient government. This involves reducing the size of the bureaucracy, eliminating redundancies, and making agencies more directly accountable. Greater local/state control. This approach promotes decision-making that is closer to the citizens, minimizing the impact of a one-size-fits-all policy from Washington. Reinforcement of traditional values and family structure. Proponents argue that by emphasizing family, religious values, and national sovereignty, societal cohesion is strengthened. Fiscal conservatism. This includes reducing expenditures, cutting regulatory burdens, and potentially lowering taxes. Protecting free speech and religious liberty. This entails removing what they perceive as ideological overreach in DEI programs, critical race theory, and similar initiatives. Risks, trade-offs, and unintended consequences. Numerous analysts caution that while some intentions may be commendable, if one aligns with the values, the associated risks are considerable. Democratic erosion. The centralization of executive power, the weakening of independent oversight, and the politicization of civil service all pose risks to democratic norms. Marginalization of vulnerable groups. Modifications to civil rights, LGBTQ+ protections, and reproductive rights could result in diminished legal protections for minorities and increased social risks. Fragmentation and inequality among states. A significant transfer of power and funding to states may disadvantage individuals in states with limited capacity or differing political ideologies. Backlash and polarization. Cultural and ideological disputes may escalate, potentially leading to social and political instability. Public health concerns. A reduction in federal oversight in health, education, and civil liberties could result in poorer outcomes, particularly for those dependent on federal programs. Climate crisis consequences. The rollback of environmental protections or a slowdown in climate action could exacerbate long-term environmental degradation and negatively impact public health, especially in vulnerable areas.